All right, we are live. Let's roll with another edition of that crazy late night Monday gun channel show called Lock and Load. This is HVS, the one and only HVS, and wanted to talk about a few things today. It's obviously September 11th, a meaningful day, and also wanted to talk briefly about what to do and expect if you're an evacuee in your place is flooded out and from Hurricane Irma, and or if you're in any Red Cross, if you're in any situation where you can't make it home, your place is burned down, flooded out, and you're temporarily unable to get back to your home. So, because that happened to me once. So I just wanted to share with everybody what they can expect. I wanted to introduce our great panelists. We've got from Michigan, Dusty One and Squib Load.
Hey.
And
hello.
And from Maryland, I believe, Rupan, Jared Walsh, right?
Yeah, from Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. I knew it began with an M. See, I got a part of it. And from Oklahoma. Oklahoma, one of my favorite preppers, Oily Prepper.
Howdy.
AKA
Hello. Yes.
Oily's Humble Home.
Yes.
You hear if Mouse is doing okay?
Mouse is doing great. She did post a video today over on Facebook of some flooding coming up. But of course, her house is basically one of those houses on stilts, very tall, up like 16 feet up in the air or something like that. So she's good. Everything's great. Praise God. The storm went further west than expected, so that really helped her out a bunch. So
it's still going north. It's going to affect Georgia, South Carolina, and possibly Tennessee and Alabama. The way things are looking.
She's getting rain, but it's not like the hurricane force winds that they were expecting. So she didn't evacuate. She felt good enough about it to not evacuate. So.
Yeah, in my case, back in the early 90s, I had a place burned down while I was at work in the Malibu fire, which was declared a federal disaster zone by then President Clinton. And I was at work, and I had seen the fire on TV, and I called in to my landlord's number, and I got her husband, and I said, has it burned down yet? And I was just kind of joking. He said, no, but I could see the flames coming over the hill, and it's going to. So
wow.
So I said, well, just save my bicycle. That was because I guess, and everybody called up and asked them to save one thing, like their cat or their dog or whatever, one possession. And I said, we'll save my bicycle because I have a really nice road bike, and I used to go like 90 miles a day on that thing. And it was a pretty nice one, a Davidson.
And you still had a heart attack?
Well, my grandfathers, both of them had died from a heart attack. My dad had open heart surgery when he was 59. So heredity, your genes kind of make a difference in that kind of thing as far as.
True. That's true. I mean, that's just pretty shocking to me because even though your genes play a role, usually if you really exercise your heart and stuff, they're.
Well, I haven't been doing 90 miles a day in a long time. I got to tell you. When I first came out here, it was for a bicycle trip around the islands, and I kind of came on vacation and wound up staying. But it was like I died and went to heaven. But back onto the topic. I was at work, so I called up and I said, okay, save my bicycle. And I tried to make it back home, but all the roads are closed. You can't make it back home. And that's what happens. The police closed off all the roads. The fire department closed off all the roads. It was impossible to get back into Malibu, which was where I was living up on Rambla Vista, Rambla Pacifica. And I saw my place, so I went. I made it back to San Fernando Valley, where my folks used to have a home, and I watched my place burn down on TV. So, this is what everybody should expect when you find the roads do finally open. You have to have some kind of utility bill to prove that you live there for the police to let you back in. And the thing is, probably going back to see your home, or what used to be your home, is probably your first instinct, but really that's wrong. But I did go to see my place, and it looked like the whole street looked like London after the Blitz. It was just a pile of embers, and the only thing that I could fish out of the embers was I forgot the exact name of the brand, but they probably still sell that brand. It's like a weight bench with like with elastic bands that you push, and the steel part of it was still there. The wood bench part had burned up, but all it was like the steel L part of it left, and that was really the only thing I could salvage out of the fire. But I was sitting there digging through the ashes, and one of the other neighbors that used to live in the kind of apartment, this fancy apartment complex, it's across from what's now Duke's, and he just said, why are you digging in the ashes? And I said, I'm looking for my stuff. And obviously there was absolutely nothing I could find there, because it was all just ashes and pieces of burned wood. And so he said, what I'm going to tell all of you is you should probably why don't you just go to the Red Cross center, because you'll be glad you did. And he was right. So I just looked around. I mean, all there was just ashes and the L from the steel L from the weightlifting device. I forgot what it's the one they sell on the internet and on TV sometimes, but Bowflex. Yeah, it was the Bowflex. It was the steel part of the Bowflex was all that I could fish out, and everything else was gone. And so I went up to a church. I think it was off Cane and Dune. I forgot where that was, the Red Cross Center. So that's what you should do, is you should ask the police officer, even if you're not home yet, even if it's nowhere near where you used to live, but this one, it was kind of. So I went to this church, I forget what kind, and you park your car, you walk in. It was the Red Cross Victim Assistance Center, or whatever they call it. And they had outside, there were some like grief counselors, but I didn't feel like I needed to talk to a grief counselor, because I'm a guy and I can handle anything. And okay, my place burned down, but whatever, I wasn't hurt. So there were people who needed grief counselors. But anyway, so I think the grief counselor was slightly annoyed that I really wasn't interested in talking to him. But anyway, I went into the because they have a whole protocol of how they talk to people who have been. There were some people who needed it, like my neighbor, one of my neighbors. She had just one of the neighbors her family had bought a brand new house. Like it was right next to the apartment complex. It must have been like a $3 million home, and they must have saved all their lives for it. And they had just closed escrow like 2 weeks ago, and then it burned down. So she was like completely flipping out. But I mean, I just gave her a hug, and she was insured, so but it was still very traumatic for her. But anyway, you walk in. So if you go to a Red Cross center, the first thing that happens is they will ask you where you live. Because they have there'll be a table, and they'll have a list of addresses of all the places that were affected by whatever it was, and because they're there to help people that have been affected by, in this case, hurricane or what. Is somebody snoring already? Dusty.
No.
Okay, I'm awake.
Sorry, let me.
All right.
You do
It's
have
like-
to check.
I mean, it takes people more than 2 minutes before they fall asleep, but
No, it doesn't.
Oh man,
Oh, burn.
Wah, 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 wah.
Well, let me tell you, I just had this picture in my head of a grief counselor being like, be devastated, dang it, be devastated.
yeah, it's like he was like upset that I didn't need his help or something. I didn't appear to need his help.
I know you're devastated, just admit it. Sorry.
No, yeah, he said something like, I could tell you handle everything on your own or something like that. He's trying to psychologically analyzing me, not having said like more than 3 words. But anyway, I walked in, so there's this table, and they're going to have a list of addresses of any place that was affected. So, because that's their job to help people that were affected. Because there will inevitably be, and there were people who just wanted a handout there. And they know they're giving out free stuff. So there was people who live in Malibu in their pickup trucks, and they were all there wanting a free handout, even though their place didn't burn down. And so they check addresses and stuff like that before they start writing vouchers, which is what they do. And so the first thing they'll ask you is they'll try and cover your normal bases. Do you have a place to stay? And I said, no, not really. So, okay, let me give you a voucher for a hotel room for a couple nights until you get situated. And they give you a voucher for a hotel room and another piece of paper. The voucher is like 2 pieces of paper because it's like the original and the Xerox. And they'll give you another piece of paper with addresses of a bunch of hotels that will accept Red Cross vouchers. And you'll be surprised, a lot of nice hotels do. I think for me, it was some Travelodge in Santa Monica somewhere, which is pretty much the nearest city to Malibu. And there are all these rich homeless people who were not going to move to the valley under any conditions. And I'm sure in Florida, as in Malibu, when all of a sudden you have all these homeless people, all the rentals get snapped up really quick. So you have to have what's going to happen is you'll get a hotel room for a few nights. The Red Cross will give you a voucher for that, and they will also give you vouchers for clothes, because assuming all your clothes are underwater. So you're going to need some new clothes, and they'll give you vouchers for clothes and a list of stores that will accept Red Cross vouchers. And I think Nordstrom accepts vouchers and stuff. But and then they'll give you a voucher for furniture and first and last month's rent after somebody verifies that your place is actually underwater in the case of a hurricane or burned down in the case of a fire. They'll give you a voucher for first and last month's rent on someplace where you can live. So what you get by going to a shelter, what you get by going to your place and it's like closure. If you just look at your place underwater, completely underwater, well, might get a sense of closure, but you're not going to really salvage anything out of it unless you have a diving suit and oxygen tank, aqua lung to go diving. You really probably aren't going to get anything out of it. So go to Red Cross Center. They just give you a stack of vouchers for clothes, furniture, hotel rooms, rentals, a rental car if you need one. They just give vouchers, and they'll give you a list of places where you can use those vouchers. And so how it works is people complain that sometimes people donate to the Red Cross and they don't all use it for whatever particular emergency is the cause of the day, but they're there and they do help people. How it works is after every disaster is kind of wrapped up, then the Red Cross gives the FEMA a list of, this is how much money we took in during this disaster, and this is how much we paid out. And the FEMA writes the Red Cross a check for whatever the difference is. They pick up the balance if they didn't collect enough money to cover from charitable donations to cover how much they wrote in vouchers. And there was also hot food there. It was McDonald's, but McDonald's like donated like a huge big igloo container full of Big Macs, which I didn't touch, but it was nice So everything you need will be at a Red Cross shelter. And then, because that's really, especially if you have a family, you have to take care of them. First thing you need is shelter, food, shelter, and then you have to get resituated somewhere else while you're everything else gets sorted out. And the rentals will disappear really quick. So you may need to find a real estate agent to find you a rental, and which is what I did. And I was lucky because all these rich people they were all living on the basketball court at Pepperdine College, because nobody in Malibu wants to live in the valley. So, I mean, I'm talking families with children were living on the basketball court. And it was insane. I mean, I was lucky I found a place right away. I was like 2 nights in a travel lodge, and then I got a rental. And it was really easy to move because everything that I had burned down in the fire. I borrowed a blanket from my new neighbor next door in the next door apartment, and on a beachfront rental, which is how I got used to living near the ocean, or in that case, on the ocean. And I bought a candle, and I was all moved in. Candle and a blanket. That's all I needed. And it's just amazing how much stuff you carry around from place to place. But it's the main thing I just wanted to share with anybody who's listening to this is when you have this disaster, the first thing is just going to the place that is underwater or burned down. It might give you a sense of closure, but you aren't going to actually move forward with your life at all there. Go to Red Cross Center. They'll help you get restarted somewhere. And they'll just do it with vouchers. Anyway, that's where your Red Cross donations go to if you make it to the Red Cross. If you prefer to donate to the Salvation Army, I'm sure that, there's, I said it. There's a lot of organizations and people that help each other. But
does the Red Cross accept Bitcoin?
They do. Everybody accepts Bitcoin nowadays. Bitcoin was, in spite of the rumors that China was going to shut down Bitcoin exchanges, which was fake news. Bitcoin has been holding a little over 4,200 most of the day. It's over 4,200 last time I checked. So now that we've had our crypto moment, crypto flashback.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, well, at least I haven't. I'm not shaking my mac and cheese at Mal's toes. But
if she was here, you would be.
Yeah, I dangle my macaroni in her face.
I never thought I'd hear that.
That's a bad visual, man.
Really bad visual, yeah.
Well, how many mac and cheese jokes can you possibly come up with anyway?
I'm sure you could probably come up with quite a bit.
So it's not a prepping thing, but Florida is there's I think it's like the power's out, and it's like how many millions of people are without power? Like 7 million, 8 million. I don't know how many people are without power, but
lots of people.
Yeah, if you're in Florida and you can't make it home, don't bother. Go to Red Cross Center. That's really the best thing you can do. And just if you don't know where one is, just ask any police officer, firefighter, or anybody that works for the government, or anybody at any church, and they'll figure it out. They'll point you in the right direction, and you'll be able to get your life restarted. And because there are people there that will help you. So that's how I got restarted, and that's how hopefully all these people in Florida and any other states that are affected will get through the insanity of it all. Yeah, I mean, I remember I saw the movie Key Largo, and a lot of movies have been done on the ocean bridges and stuff, from I think James Bond movies to Miami Vice, when on those ocean bridges that go between all the keys. Very interesting, but obviously the roads are closed right now, and people can't make it back.
If you had a trailer in the Florida Keys, it's gone.
Yeah, go to Red Cross Center. Tell them, just give them the address of your trailer, and they'll figure out that they'll get you a payment on a new trailer for somewhere.
From what I could see watching the Weather Channel before, during, and after the hurricane in Florida, it looks like some places got hit hard. They're partially underwater, and other places it was just a normal hurricane. And for those of you who've never been through a hurricane, when you live down there, you get lots of, air quotes, normal hurricanes. It's some wind, it's some rain. If you're next to the creek, it might flood a little bit. The roads might get washed out. The power's going to go out for a week, stuff like that. But you get used to it. Then there's the ones that are a little bit worse. I mean, what happened in Texas, nobody counted on it making landfall 3 times and parking over Houston and just dumping rain for a week. And that's, they really didn't get a whole lot of wind damage. They got all the storm surge and the rain. And here they got more wind, I think, than storm surge from what I could see.
They got a lot of storm surge after the wind went through there. There was a lot of storm surge today in towns that were filling up after the wind had gone through.
Yeah, but I mean, where the cameras were, these guys were in the streets, and there's 3 feet of water in the streets. That's not bad compared to 9 feet of water in Houston or something like that. So,
well, Houston appears to have been built in the wrong place. I mean, seriously, it's flat. It's that there's levees that are just they can't handle an event like this, and it's just. Obviously, real estate is less expensive there, and that's why it was built where it was.
Stuff could be engineered better. Nothing's going to be in perfectly storm-proof, flood-proof, that sort of thing. Things could be engineered better. But, I mean, if you look at, they have different building codes, and some of the building codes in Florida are fairly good, and they have evacuation routes. I mean, here in Michigan, there are no signs that say, there are some snow evacuation route or snow auxiliary, snow routes where the plows will go if the highway is out of commission or something like that. But otherwise, there's no, I mean, in Florida, there are gates on the exit ramps and entrance ramps to the expressway to block them off so that they can use both lanes of the expressway to get from the coast to inland. They got the same thing in Georgia, South Carolina. I mean, where else do you see stuff like that? So, I mean, they are used to having these sorts of storms. They are used to this sort of thing. There's always new people that haven't gone through it, or maybe they haven't gone through one that was not that bad,
I think in Florida, the thing is they have no state income tax. Is that it? So a lot of people retire there because they can collect their pensions without having to pay state income tax. And that's a big draw for retirees to move there. And so there are going to be new people that don't know the drill, as it were.
Yeah, but for the people that have gone through it before, sometimes there's a bit of complacency. If you go through all the hurricanes I've gone through, I don't think nothing of them. If somebody said a hurricane was coming, I'd be like, okay, I'll get some extra water, I'm good. But that's only because I went through so many, and it's not great to be complacent. On the other hand, sometimes I do like to.
How many hurricanes do you have in Michigan?
No, I didn't grow up in Michigan. I'm not from Michigan. I'm not a Yankee. I'm a redneck from down south. So, yeah.
That's why I like you.
I'm a good old boy. So, yeah, I grew up on the coast of North Carolina, South Carolina. I lived in Georgia, Tennessee. So, yeah, I know what it's like to go through hurricanes. Obviously, I've never stood on the beach and welcomed one in.
Yeah, were you watching the Weather Channel live on cable? I mean, that guy out there was
Cantori. Yeah, I like Jim Cantori.
He's like standing out there in 130 mile an hour winds and stuff.
I think they're nuts. They're absolutely out of their ever-loving minds.
Well, no, but here's the thing, though. Before the storm hit, they were saying a picture isn't worth your life. Don't come out here to take a selfie and get hit by debris. And then what do? They stand in the eye wall for 45 minutes.
With debris flying everywhere.
I will tell you this, though. When an eye passes over your house, it is cool because all of a sudden everything stops, right? You're like, what happened? you know, and you go outside and there's a little bit of sprinkling and you can see a little bit of light and it's calm, and you look at the, you know, and what the wind destroyed and stuff, and you're going,
Yeah, well,
what happened to the storm? And then before you know it, the other side catches you and you're running into the house. Hailstones are coming down. And
it was cool being on the lead of the Channel 2 news, but it was just a picture of me walking across the one wood beam of where from where my house used to be. And I was the lead on the Channel 2 Los Angeles news, but so what?
Did you look into the camera and say, folks, don't try this at home?
No, they were just, you know, gathering footage for the show, and they cut me in. Because all I had left was my bicycle shorts and what I was wearing and a T-shirt, and everything else burned down. So that was me walking across the...
Well, there are people in Texas and Florida and even Georgia that have lost their homes or had enough damage that they're gonna have to have it remediated, or who the heck knows. Depends on how their insurance wants to handle it, assuming they have insurance. But then there's other people that are, you know, going to be picking their neighbors' debris off their lawn and that sort of thing. So I mean, some people don't have really a whole lot of issues, and some people lose everything.
And on a good note, I don't have to go to Florida. My sister's house, it survived real well. My mom's house, she lost 1 yard light or something. So that's a small electric bill that we can pay and get somebody to fix.
I just wanted to add, after you go to the Red Cross Center, then they're going to send you to the FEMA reception center, for lack of a better word. And I wanted, if after you get your Red Cross vouchers, be prepared. You go into the FEMA area, they'll set up a tent, a FEMA tent, and there'll be two. You'll get a number and weight, basically, and because it's the government, right? And there's two agencies you'll be dealing with: FEMA and Small Businesses, SBA, Small Businesses Association or something, SBA. And what the thing you need to be prepared for mentally is FEMA is going to basically give you a tax form, which is like probably the last thing anybody wants to see if you just lost your home. It's like a tax form. It's like, what the? But they can't help you if they don't know who you are. And so what I did is I just sent it to my CPA, and so you're going to get a tax form from FEMA, and you're going to get a application for a small business loan, which is a low interest loan. And because so what I particularly did in my case, in the 90s, there was still interest rates weren't as low as they are today, even though the SBA would give you like I guess today almost a 0% interest loan pretty much, but for however long you need it to rebuild. But I was just renting, so I didn't need to rebuild anything. The stuff that I lost in the fire, you know, like my grandmother's Bible, silver Bible that she gave me, and that stuff was gone. So they just, I didn't want a loan, so I gave the loan papers and the tax form to my CPA, and I said, fill these forms out and fill the loan application out in such a way that it's truthful. There's nothing dishonest in it at all. I don't want to lie to the government, but I want to fill it out in such a way that I will never be approved for this loan. Because if you're not approved for the loan, then you get a grant. That means you qualify for a grant for $5,000, which is what I got. And they did come later and audit the grant. Somebody from the IRS came to see what if I spent the money on recovery type of items and didn't just throw like a party or something. And so they came by, and I told them, well, I don't mind you guys coming by and checking out what I spent the money on, because you guys really saved my butt. And I just showed him some clothes that I bought and a few other items, and he was like, okay. And because I couldn't find enough receipts. All right, whose dog is snoring? I put somebody's dog to sleep again.
Not mine this time.
All right. So anyway, I've totally put me off of my train of thought. But so uh, give the tax papers to your accountant and let them fill it out for you. Because if you're like running a business and you have deductions, and if you have a complicated tax form and with all kinds of deductions and deduction schedules, and if you fill out the form wrong, it could mess up your business return somehow. So just give it. Don't expect to get a tax form. Just give it to your CPA, and you could fax it to them from your CPA's office the next day. And then the SBA will look at your loan and either approve it or not approve it, and then you'll either get to rebuild with government money or they'll give you a grant for something. In the case of the place that I was living, the guy was a veteran from World War II. He was a bomber, I think he was a navigator or something, who owned the property that burned down. His house and the apartment complex in the hills of Malibu there, across from the ocean, across from Duke's on PCH, and the property, the value of his property was such that the government didn't think he qualified because his net worth was too high, even though everything he owned had just burned down. So. And they really were like crying because they wanted to help him. I mean, he was a World War II veteran. He flew bombers in World War II, and they wanted to help him, but his net worth was so high that however they figure out who they're going to help. That's why you need a CPA to fill out all these forms. Really, you can't do anything with the government anymore without a CPA. But anyway. I know that before this, when this whole hurricane thing was going on, Squib, you had that firearm confiscation thing from Haiti. Did you still have that around?
Okay. So the U.S. Virgin Islands, there was an announcement sent out by it's an order signed by the governor of the islands. And more or less, the way it's worded sounds worse than what it really is. The order is from a law that's on the books. It's Title 23, Section 1522 of the Virgin Islands Code. The Adjutant General is authorized and directed to seize arms, ammunition, explosives, incendiary material, and any other property that may be required by military forces for the performance of this emergency mission in accordance with the rules of force promulgated by the Virgin Islands National Guard and approved by the Virgin Islands Department of Justice.
Sounds like martial law.
Now, that's what it sounds like, and this is from the official order signed by the governor. What's this guy's name? Kenneth Mapp. So I tried to do some digging into this Virgin Islands code, and I was trying to do it at work in between jobs, and I'd go on and Google it and start digging, and I really was coming to a lot of dead ends. Now, if any of you watch other shows on gun channels, you may have heard of Clover Tech. On his Friday show, his Firearm Friday show last week, he goes over this, and he had the same problem. He had to do a lot of digging to find the actual wording in the code, but he did find it. He had more time than me, and he took more time than me, and he went over it very well. So if you check out Clover Tech show from Friday, September the 8th, it'll say Clover Tech, Firearm Friday, Virgin Islands Executive Order, and Virgin Islands Code, gun confiscation, ?
Yeah, I saw that in my feed.
It explains it very well. This is actually an order. If you go into the law and you look into it, it means that the National Guard can confiscate items. Really, I should say, confiscate isn't the right term. It's no. What is it? No. What is it in the movies when the cop takes somebody's car? They to chase the bad guy. They say
commandeer.
Commandeer, thank you. It allows the National Guard to commandeer materials necessary for their mission. So, for example, if their mission is to clear the roads and the road is blocked and they don't have anything to unblock the road and there's a backhoe across the street, they can commandeer that backhoe.
So like when Sean Connery commandeered that Humvee.
Humvee, yes, yes. Rupan.
I'm only borrowing your Humvee.
See, and
thank you.
That falls into the code. And if there was a situation where they come rolling up in their Bradleys because they're here for our guns, and they ran out of gas, and the gas station has fuel, they can siphon gas, things like that. It's for getting material. It isn't for coming to your door going, "Hey, I'd like your bolt action rifle chambered in a round that our quartermaster doesn't have." That sort of thing. The military is not going to take stuff from you that they don't have parts for, they don't have training with, they don't have ammunition for, they don't have.
Unless somebody orders them to.
There's a misnomer in this, and if you look at it, it's just for them. If they need a boat to go rescue somebody out there who's drowning, they're going to grab a boat and go get them. It also says in the order, if you read into it, they have to compensate you for whatever they take.
Yeah, well, they were supposed to do that. What was it in last hurricane in Katrina? They didn't bother to give most of those guns back that they took.
Well, that's when you get yourself a lawyer and you sue.
Oh, suing the government. Speaking of which, I think the Gun Owners of America had something on. They wanted the Justice Department to go after Eric Holder for Fast and Furious.
All I'm saying is with the Virgin
for murder.
With the Virgin Islands thing, if you want to go tinfoil hat, then you can think this means that the National Guard's out to get you. But if you want to look at the logic of it, if they needed something in order to complete the mission that they didn't already have, they've got generators, they've got water, they've got guns, they've got ammo.
No, I'm not saying that they're out to
hedgehogs.
I'm just saying that there are, in any group, there are always people that will abuse the power that's given to them.
Now that I believe, if you said this is a way the governor could do a backdoor confiscation, sure, he could abuse this law to do a backdoor confiscation. But in this day and age, with communication being the way it is, as soon as word reached the mainland, you bet there would be a bunch of lawyers going down there, and it would not go well. Now, people might not get their property back, but they might get
lawyers going down there in the middle of there's no transportation, but
the hurricane was over. Okay, it's over.
The hurricane is over, and there's still people stuck in Caribbean islands that can't get off.
Well, that's because they were dumb enough to live on an island. Moving on.
Just on vacation. They were on vacation. They were on vacation in a hotel room and couldn't get out.
Oh my gosh, y'all kill me.
So what I'm saying is, you can take this and you can go tinfoil hat and you can say, see, the government's out to get us, or like what Clovertech did, and I thought he did it very well. He went over the law and it's buried in there, but once he started reading it and explaining it, it made absolute total sense. In an emergency situation, if the military needs something, they can commandeer it, and they have to compensate for it. They're not there to come down the street with their Bradleys to come take the food out of your house.
The
steal your hunting rifle.
The governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands did appear on Fox and Friends, or one of the Fox TV shows, and he went on there and he tried to explain it, that it really wasn't anything. They're not going to run around and confiscate firearms. And then as soon as he got off the air, they were like, "Wait a minute, what just happened?" What did he say?
You know where I could see something in between where the way the law is written and in between the way it could get abused, is if he was so freaked out that the people there might, if they had arms, they might loot. So he figures he can take their guns before they can use them to loot, and that's his justification. I don't agree with it, but I'm saying that would be, I think if they were going to do it, they would come up with some hokey thing like, well, we were afraid the people were going to use their guns to loot or to shoot at the National Guard, so we just seized them, and which is, of course, breaking the law, and it's going too far, and that sort of thing. But
posse comitatus and all that.
there is a point where a politician could abuse their power. It's happened in the past.
It happens every day, as a matter of fact. But
well,
anyway.
yeah, I mean the people that had their guns taken away, like I said in Katrina, they've sued and they've said that they can't locate their guns that they seized from them. So
oh no! If it's commandeered, it's probably never coming back.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Hawaii. They won't take your guns. You don't have anything they want.
They want my mountain house, dude.
Yep.
Well, they might want that.
They want my number 10 Kansas mountain
Well
house.
take your mountain house.
If I had a hedgehog, they'd probably try and seize that. But
we do not need hedgehogs.
Okay, we know your wife won't let you have one. We understand. All right, moving along.
There might be a surprise hedgehog in today's broadcast.
Oh, okay. Oh, man.
Oh, my.
So, all right. I think I've covered all the Red Cross stuff, and basically the get your butt to a Red Cross center if you're in the hurricane zone, and they'll help you. And just to quote what the guy told me when I was digging through rubble, get yourself to the Red Cross Center. You'll be glad you did. So anyway, so you had some pictures you wanted to screen share of from New York?
Yeah, so I took the family to New York for spring break back in April. We actually did a trip. We did Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. That's where I got the pictures of the USS New Jersey for the battleship show, and the pictures of the Growler in New York City for the first sub show. So here, I will screen share. Do the funny screen thing. So you guys can see that?
Yes.
So I took this picture in April. This is One World Trade Center. This is the new building, obviously. It's 1,776 feet high. And we really weren't going to New York City as our main. I mean, I really wanted to do the Philadelphia thing, but we're that close, and we had a couple days. So I said, let's just go. I mean, my wife always wanted to see Central Park, so we went to Central Park, and we went to the Intrepid, and then on the way out, we swung by the World Trade Center. We just wanted to take a look, and then we went over the Brooklyn Bridge and through the Bronx and a few other places, and got to just see what it was like out there. I can say that it's not like what you see on the TV shows and the movies. I did not think it was as crowded. The buildings didn't look that big to me. Traffic was a little bit bad, but I've seen worse in California. So, I mean, take it for what it's worth.
Did you have to try and find a place to park?
Okay, this is weird. They put the car on an elevator and stuck it upstairs. For somebody who lives in Michigan and grew up down south, that's just bizarre. We had to find a parking structure, so I went online. I found a parking structure near the Intrepid, and I bought tickets.
With Ronnie.
I bought tickets online, and you have a certain time you show up and a certain time you leave. You can buy as much time as you want, but if you buy in advance, it's just easier. So we actually came out of the tunnel in the middle of the town and made a couple left-hand turns, and we're going down this side street, which will take us to the parking structure, which is a block from the water, and 2 blocks further down is the Intrepid. And we're actually ahead of schedule. So I pulled over on that street before we got to the parking structure and just sort of sat there, even though it said no stopping, standing, whatever. And there was a cop walking by with a pad, and I'm, moved forward a few feet and parked again. And I'm like, she's going to write me a ticket. And we actually happened to be right next to this. Can you see this?
Yeah. Okay.
This is a fire station on that street. And we had seen a documentary on 9/11 a few years ago, and this fire station was in that documentary. And I nudged my wife. I said, doesn't that look familiar? She goes, yeah, it does, with the flag and everything, because the guy was hanging out the window raising up the flag and whatnot. And this was in some documentary. So this is on the street. Everything's all housed in there, all nice and tight. But anyhow, let's see. Let's go back here. So here's the new building. This is the footprint of one of the two original buildings. So they've got a wall that goes around the edge with everybody's names who died on that day, and then it's a fountain going down, and there's a lot of people down there. There's no admission to get in there, but they have a museum that there's admission, and if you go up in One World Trade Center, there's an observation deck. There's admission there, but it's you know, a real quiet kind of place and that sort of thing. It's big, but it's not really that big. If you walk around this, they look a lot bigger on TV than the perimeter. When I was surprised at what a small footprint it was, but there's two of these, and it's something to see. What I didn't like were there were people there taking selfies, and I thought that was poor taste.
Seems very disrespectful, yeah.
I was looking down in there to see if anybody threw coins in there because I could see somebody doing that. And I think it's because there's so many people. Most of the people taking the selfies and whatnot were younger people. They were probably 5 years old when this happened. They don't remember it. It doesn't mean as much to them. So this isn't part of the National Park Service or anything like that. I really think it should be, but maybe somewhere down the road it will be. So this is standing right up against One World Trade Center, the new one, and looking straight up. It was kind of a cloudy day that day, so they said if we went up to the observation deck, the wait wouldn't be as long because not as people want to go up there on a cloudy day. We wouldn't be able to see as far. But this is, I thought he said it's about a 90-minute wait. So, and here are the names, right? So they've got them etched in here all along the edge of both of them. And here is the security right in front of us. So this is a building. The doors would be off to your left over here to get in. There were two guys standing over there, and they're the ones that told me about the observation deck. I guess you go around the other side to get to the observation deck. But you know, I was a little bit nervous about taking pictures over there because I thought they might, you know, think I'm looking at their security stuff. But they got all these bollards here. You can't drive in. They had this on the other side too, where you can't drive in. You know, so if you wanted to pull up a truck with explosives like Timothy McVeigh did, you're not gonna be able to get it close enough. Plus, I heard that the building has some sort of protection so many floors up from the ground to defend against if they tried to blow it up with a truck. But it's good to see they had extra security there. But it was also good that it was just kind of a solemn place and just real quiet and not, it wasn't overcrowded with people, and it wasn't too commercialized, and it wasn't, I mean, it was just kind of right down the middle as far as the experience. But, you know, we were there, we had a few minutes, and we decided that we parked across the street. We paid to park. They parked it in a basement. We came across a walkway and went over, and everybody was real friendly about giving directions. So that was really nice. The stuff you hear about New Yorkers being unfriendly, we didn't run into any unfriendly ones. But
you're probably in the wrong place.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe we were in the wrong places, but yeah, we were just over there for a little bit. We walked around.
They aren't going to be mean to people visiting the World Trade Center.
I don't know. I did think, you know, it was just kind of, I thought it was weird that they were charging admission to the museum with the artifacts. I kind of thought that was tacky. And I talked to one of the New Yorkers that was giving us directions, and I told him that, and he says the money goes to help the victims. And I'm thinking, it's 15 years later. They sued. They got money from the government. They got all those donations. They got what do they set up funds for the kids to go to college? All this stuff.
Yeah.
What do they need 15 years later? I had a problem with that. So
that well, I don't know. I agree with that. I mean, it's going to continue to help those kids, you know, as far as college and things like that. So
well, yeah, but he said some of it,
I don't
not
have
all
a problem
of it.
with it.
So.
Yeah. Right. Well, some of it's got to go to maintain the building and maintain the.
I guess, but that's where I think the National Park Service should come in and take care of it. And, you know, if you had to have a park pass to get in, I could understand that. But otherwise, our taxes pay for it. But, I mean, that's just my opinion. I'll take it for what it's worth. It's just my opinion. But it was, you know, this wasn't the main reason we were going down there, but we did it. We had enough time to do it. And, you know, then we drove over the Brooklyn Bridge and headed out. But here's something interesting. So here is, you can see the edge of one of the tidal pools here that is along the base of one of the original buildings, and it's got the names on it. And look up close here. You see that? There's a flower in there.
Yeah.
We saw a few of these here and there, not very many, and we thought maybe somebody from the family had come down that day or something. And then we found this sign. As a tribute, the 9/11 memorial places roses upon the victims' names on their birthdays. So there were a few people on that day, that was April 7th, that had a birthday, and there was a flower in there. So they do this. And I'm glad they had a sign up to explain it. Otherwise, you might have a bunch of people who don't know anybody leaving flowers. I mean, you sort of have to do that. So I thought that was there was a really class act for them to do that at the memorial. So
yeah, and they did it today too. Like during, family will leave them in there on the like the anniversary of the. They did that today. I saw a bunch in there today.
And while I'm screen sharing, I've got two other pictures to screen share. They're not related to 9/11, but I'm screen sharing, so let's just get them out of the way. And one is we went out to Nebraska a couple weeks ago. We stayed with Travis P11 from Gun Channels, and he's a real cool guy to hang out with. Had a great time shooting with him. And while we were out in Nebraska, we saw the eclipse. We were in an area where there was totality, so it was really cool. And on the way back, we stopped at Strategic Air Command Museum just outside of Omaha, Nebraska. You see an assortment of aircraft there. But I'm not really showing the pictures of the aircraft because I was going to do I might do a little clip on the museum here. But I just wanted to show where we were. And this is what we found. This is for you, HVS.
Yay!
They had hedgehogs at the museum. So,
so you took a picture.
I think these
with barbed wire.
With barbed wire. I think these are for a display, and this was behind some crates. They had some aircraft taken apart, extra parts and whatnot. And this was behind. So I think this might have been part of a display, and they just moved it away. But I'm like, I got to get a picture for HVS.
That doesn't look too hard to build.
And then
that's iron welded together, isn't it?
Speaking of which, I have a tactical pop quiz question. It's a name that film question. So I'm going to give you a quote, and it's not from Full Metal Jacket, but it's similar to Full Metal Jacket. So the quote is, "We're going to refortify this base and protect it like it's your daughter's cherry." Name that film.
Siege at Fire Base Gloria.
Yeah, you got it. I wanted to ask you because we didn't mention that film when we did the film or the war films things, which Google demonetized because I guess they don't like war films or something. But whatever. Do you think that which was more realistic, the Siege of Fire Base Gloria or Full Metal Jacket?
Ooh, I'm going to go with Full Metal Jacket, but not by much.
Okay, why?
Okay, so Siege of Fire Base Gloria, it was a Marine reconnaissance team, and they ended up at an Army fire base, and the CO there was a total idiot, so they fragged him to get him out of command there, and so they could take over and straighten everything out. That's plausible back then.
Fragging did occur.
Yeah, so that's the thing that I think makes it plausible, where they could figure out a way to write the Marines into the story in a way that could have happened, probably never did specifically that way, but could have happened back in Vietnam.
What about the battle?
The battle was, the battle, I mean, they got overran, and I mean, at one point, R. Lee Ermey's picking up rifles off of dead guys. Yeah, that's more realistic. I wouldn't want to be the guys up in the guard tower or up in the tower there with the M14s. Yeah, you first couple shots, you're going to have the advantage, and after that, you're setting duck. No thanks. But yeah.
Well, apparently, and whatever you do, don't fall asleep with a 50 caliber.
So the other thing I wanted to screen share was from an older show that we did. So this is the USS Drum in Mobile, Alabama, and this is the deck gun here on the Drum. And can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So you had thought it was one size, and I thought it was another. And the reason I think maybe you might have thought it was the one size was because that's what it was listed for a Gato class, and I thought it was another because that's what was listed on the signage on the ship. So I sent an email to the Alabama museum there, the USS Alabama Museum, and they took a while to get back with me. They actually got back with me about 2 hours after we went off air on the August 7th show. And so I've been meaning to read this and just forgot every single time. Let me tell you what they said about the deck gun on the USS Drum. The Drum was commissioned with a 3-inch gun aft. In 1943, it was removed and a 4-inch gun was put on the forward gun station. In 1945, while in the shipyard, the 4-inch gun was removed and a 5-inch was put on at the aft station, and the one forward and one was forward, but it was just to be transported to Pearl Harbor for another sub. Glad you enjoyed your visit. And then that guy lists his name. He's a volunteer there. So I guess the reason this doesn't have a standard gun on it was because it got changed 3 times. And at one point, they even stuck an extra one on there just while they towed it or moved it out to Pearl Harbor because it was dropping off a gun for another sub. So I know probably nobody noticed that, but I try to be as accurate with my facts as possible whenever I present something.
As I remember, we had I had just looked it up on Wikipedia, and I looked up the USS Drum on Wikipedia to see what the armaments were. So,
right. And what you were quoting was standard armament for a Gato class, but this one doesn't have standard armament, and I guess that's why, because the gun got changed out 3 times. So that's why it has a non-standard deck gun. So
okay,
there you go. I just wanted to correct that. You know me, anytime I have something that might not be accurate, if I find out or somebody.
Well, I really enjoyed the pictures of the hedgehogs. You just made my day. So
I saw that and I go, oh, I've got to take a picture of this. And sorry, Dusty.
Well, at least the whole thing with the siege of Firebase Gloria goes to there's a little bit of the advantage. It makes sense to fortify your base, but anyway.
Yeah. Now, getting back to the 9/11 thing, though, I do think that today it didn't get recognized as much as it has in the past. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, I don't expect it. As time goes on, more and more people are going to forget. I was looking at the Military Times, and there was an article in there about recruiters are recruiting kids today who have no idea what 9/11 was for service in the military. And I mean, a lot of guys joined the military because of 9/11.
Yeah, I met people who signed up, right after 9/11, who served like at least 4 years because they signed up after 9/11.
So there are kids, but there are kids today that are being approached by the recruiters in high school who don't understand what the war on terrorism is all about. You know, even though it sort of started before 9/11, 9/11 was the big, turning point or whatnot to
wake up call.
Yeah.
It was a Pearl Harbor of modern day Pearl Harbor.
Now, I lowered the flags today at work. I always lower the flags on September 11th. I always do. There's usually a presidential order and a governor's order, both. I used to do a presentation and email it to all the employees on 9/11, and I would switch out the pictures or whatever I had in the presentation and the email every year, so I didn't use the same thing over and over again. And about 3 years ago, the human resource director thought that it was inappropriate that the guy who lowers the flags and plunges the toilets has access to send everybody in the building an email, even though I'd been doing it for years, and people had sent me tons of thank yous. Every time we lowered the flags because somebody from Michigan had died over in Afghanistan or Iraq, I included pictures and a unit insignia and an explanation of what was going on, who he was with, where those people were from, that sort of thing. And the HR director, the new one, didn't think that was appropriate. And a lot of people are asking me, what happened to the emails? What happened to the emails? So I still lower the flags, but I don't send out an email. I do get the emails from some of the suppliers of the firearms or military surplus or whatnot. They'll do a tribute email with pictures or some sort of painting or something like that. Something it's usually pretty classy, and it's just a way to remember what happened. But I noticed there were some businesses, flags weren't lowered. They were lowered at my son's high school. We went up for curriculum night tonight, and it was mentioned in one of his classes in the lesson today. It was in one of the books where it talked about 9/11. So I thought that was good that the kids are learning this stuff in school. But
I'm just glad that they still have books.
yeah, but the kids today, they're too young to remember. They were either babies or they weren't born, and they don't know. But
Yeah, it was just amazing that the other last week there was a child by the condominium pool, and her father had asked what time it is because she had a better view of the clock over the office by the pool, and she said she couldn't read that kind of a clock. I was like, what? Why? Because it has an hour hand and a minute hand. Wait, you mean you can't read by the clock? It's like she just only knew how to read digital.
yeah, well,
And I was like,
that's Common Core for you.
I was just shocked. Somebody doesn't know how to read time.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing. How they teach the kids today is entirely different than the way we learned. What they teach the kids today is entirely different. Some stuff is a little bit better. Some stuff, in my opinion, isn't. But whatever. I'm old school, so. But at least they're not erasing 9/11 from the history books. So.
Yet.
Yet. So, I mean, I think it's important that we remember, even if it's in a small way. And, with this hurricane thing going on, I noticed how Hurricane Harvey dominated the news. And then as soon as Irma was coming in, people forgot, what? Harvey, what? What's Harvey? What? They were all focused on Florida. We were listening to the Weather Channel this morning and this evening, before work and after work, to hear if anybody on the Weather Channel actually mentioned that it was 9/11. One of the people that was broadcasting from, I think they were up in Georgia, and there's a lot of rain and still some wind and whatnot, mentioned it twice during this evening's broadcast about it being 9/11 today and not to forget. I thought that was good that they could stop talking about Irma for a second and just acknowledge what today is. I don't expect there to be a tribute, but just acknowledge. So I thought that was classy.
You really locked on the Weather Channel, though.
Yeah, every morning it'd be like, hey, you want to get up and watch the people panic? So yeah, it's only because I've gone through so many hurricanes. I'm probably just too complacent on it. So.
Well, we had 15 hurricanes that were mostly near misses last year, and it's basically the difference between Florida and the Big Island of Hawaii is that we've got like the largest volcano rising up out of the sea, bottom of the sea, and to 5,000 or 7,000 or however tall. I don't know how tall Mauna Loa is. It's like 9,000 feet. So there's a whole weather pattern around it, and it pretty much defends the island. It diverts the hurricane left or right, or the trade winds knock the top right off of it, and it basically takes a lot of the power out of it most of the time. The only way for it to hit the island straight on is almost it has to pivot around. It would have to pivot around the big mountains and hit either from the east tip or come around and hit from the west. It can't just go over that mountain. And Florida doesn't have any of that. It's pretty much flat. So it doesn't have any protections, just a flat swamp full of crocodiles and retirees, I guess. But
I figured you guys were just so far away. The hurricane got about halfway there and said, "Oh, forget it. It's just too far to go."
Well, they start in the Gulf of Mexico, where there's a lot of warm water. And as the water gets colder out towards the Pacific, middle of the Pacific, it's not as warm as it is in the Gulf of Mexico. And so that takes a lot of the energy out of it.
Well, since you guys are so far away from the mainland, how has 9/11 been in Hawaii? I mean, did you move to Hawaii before 2001?
I think I was just about ready to leave when I had got all my stuff together. I was just about ready to leave. I think I left about 4 or 5 months after 9/11.
Okay, so you've been out there since at least the 1-year anniversary of 9/11. Since Hawaii is so far away from the mainland and definitely far away from New York City, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania, is it even acknowledged out there? I mean, do people feel disconnected?
Do people feel a lot of people feel like the big island of Hawaii is a third world country and not part of the United States. I don't feel that way, and but you can get into a lot of fights over that, something like that, because it's all of it's like they don't like the Marines, they don't like the military, they don't like the United States. This is all should be some kind of pre-Stone Age place run by some defunct monarchy that no longer exists. And so I don't particularly see that Hawaiians were all that great off under the monarchy. But obviously, there aren't that many full-blooded Hawaiians left because of diseases and other things that happened. And people always just complain about the overthrow of the monarchy all the time. And it's like the whole Hawaiian sovereignty is pretty much just a joke, but it's pretty much it's on the verge of like if you're not like you haven't been living here for 4 generations, you're not a local kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and as far as I'm concerned, the whole Hawaii sovereignty thing, they can all just kiss my tuchus. I've got just as much a right to live here as they do, and if they have a problem with that, then let them try and throw me off and see what happens.
You can just kiss your macaroni noodles.
No, that I save for people that I love.
Oh, that's so kind of you. John Z, John Z, if you're listening, but you're not watching the side chat, we're trying to speak to you in the side chat, but you're just not paying attention.
I had to turn my side chat off because I think it was Gun Channel. Sometimes Gun Channels just flips out the software that runs it, and
yeah, it does.
And I think that's what was happening right before the show, so I had to turn off. Like I turned off everything except the chat, pretty much. So.
Well, and I said
the software has glitches, but don't give up on it.
Yeah. I said hi to Jesse James over on Gun Channels, and then when I went back to look, he never said hi back. So I think he doesn't love me anymore either. So.
I think he loves you, but anyway. So have we covered everything for this week's show, other than how Dusty gets his wife to accept the hedgehog on the property, or
I'm telling you, no, it would definitely not. It would not look right. It would not look right.
It wouldn't look right. All right.
No,
How do you keep the soybeans separated from the corn plantings? But I don't know.
He's got a field on one side of the street and a field on the other.
Oh, well, all right.
Are you saying instead of using a fence, you would use a fence to separate your crops? I mean, a hedgehogs to separate your crops?
Yeah, why not?
Oh my goodness! How do you separate the coffee beans from the pineapples, right?
Well, the coffee beans grow on trees. The pineapples grow on the ground. So
yeah, but you need hedgehogs to separate them.
Well. All right. Jared, save us with your AR build.
All right.
So you're building an AR over there?
Not right now. Pretty much, I just got a Faxon barrel and Faxon. I recently got a Faxon barrel and I did a video on that. I put that on my other AR. Now I'm going to put a Faxon handguard and Faxon barrel nut on there. And I have an extra barrel laying around, and I'll have an extra free float rail. So I'm going to throw those on this, which is a side charge and handle AR.
Okay. And you've got a polymer lower, or?
No, not for this one. This one's just not going to have a designated lower for it. If I could buy a lower, then I would totally do it, but I can't legally buy a lower in the state.
Oh, right. Your state is it you're the state that calls itself the constitutional state, but it's really not?
Well, we have, our Attorney General decided to reinterpret the 1994 assault weapons ban. So.
How could you did? I thought that a ban sunsetted.
Well, in 1998, they released a bunch of laws that they copied and pasted the 94 ban.
State laws?
Into my state law. And they also they also enacted a bunch of consumer protection laws that were gun control. So they realized that they could overstep and throw a bunch of laws in. But yeah, pretty much she said, according to the 94 ban, she said any weapon named in the original legislation as an assault weapon technically is an assault weapon and then is banned. So she says if you have like a weapon that shares two major features with any weapon named in the original legislation, then it's a copycat of an assault weapon, therefore banned. So if you have like a Saiga 12 shotgun, that's legal because it doesn't share like the same magazine or the same bolt as an AK or any AK. So it's kind of hard and confusing because then she goes to say that an Mini 14 or an M1A is totally legal and they're not assault weapons at all in any way. So it's just confusing.
Yeah, you know what was really funny is we had a couple here how I met at the pool who had just moved to Hawaii from Chicago, from the south side of Chicago. And so I was explaining to them about some of the firearm laws. And I said, well, you guys came from a place that has complete gun control. Nobody's allowed to own guns or carry a gun. And there's no gun shops in your town. So you're obviously there's no violence where you live, right? And they were just like, no, there's some murder every day. So
yeah, my brother lived in downtown Chicago for 4 years, and some guy got stabbed almost to death for a pair of shoes and crawled into his building, bleeding out. So,
I believe it.
yeah.
Hey, Jared, what frustrates me about these laws is they're not written on how the firearm functions. They're written about how the firearm looks. It's more about cosmetics than the operating principles. And as gun guys, we know the difference between certain things based on how they work mechanically or the action or that sort of thing. Whereas these politicians, it's just, does it look scary or doesn't it look scary? Does it sound scary? Does the feature, does the name of the feature sound scary? So for me, it's frustrating because they're not using, they're not looking at it in an intelligent way. They're looking at it, you know, I guess not.
Full Metal Jacket sounds scary.
Sounds scary.
With soft points do a hell of a lot more damage.
And they keep calling semi-automatic guns automatic, and and assault rifles and things like that. Just because it says assault rifle doesn't mean that's what it's used for.
Assault rifle is a shoulder-fired, selective fire rifle or intermediate cartridge rifle that feeds from a detachable box magazine. Now, you can have a different type of action for it, recoil, blowback, whatever, that sort of thing. Some people argue that it's only intermediate cartridge, but that I'm not willing to buy that because there's too many of them chambered in a full rifle cartridge. But that sort of definition is not very technical for a gun guy, but for a politician writing law, they're just like a deer in headlights. What's the difference between a rifle cartridge and an intermediate cartridge? They have no idea. And it's frustrating for gun guys because we're just trying to be logical and rational, and they're interested in cosmetics.
Well, they're interested in politics. Gun control laws never work. They don't make any sense. But if they get votes basically Bloomberg will give them money for an ad that says we'll make our children safe by banning these particular types of weapons, and then I'll have a picture of something that looks scary. And then Bloomberg will pay for their political ads, The
opposing needs to say so-and-so de Blasio or whoever is wanting to make your kids sitting ducks or make your family sitting ducks by banning these weapons.
Well, I found a practical use for the scary black rifle recently. We walk a couple times a week, sometimes every day of the week, down to the nature center. It's about a mile away from our house, and then we'll walk over a mile at the nature center. Depends on how many laps we do. We feed the ducks, that sort of thing. We take the dog out for a walk. My wife and I, we're getting older. We need the exercise. The vet says the dog, he's getting older. He needs exercise. It's just some time for me and her. We just talk and just relax. Well, walking through our subdivision out to the nature center, we have to go down some residential streets. These are not main streets. The speed limit's 25 miles an hour. People come flying down these streets sometimes at 60 miles an hour, and some of them got blind curves. They've got trees and bushes and things blocking, and there are no sidewalks, so you have to walk on the street. So here the three of us are, my wife, my dog, and myself, walking down the street, and it was yesterday, I think it was, a guy come blowing past us and in a pickup truck, missed me by a couple feet, and he just kept going. He didn't slow down. He didn't tap his brakes. He did nothing. He just kept flying by. And I said, I wonder if he would have hit his brakes coming down the hill around the corner if he had seen an AR-15 slung over my back. I'm not talking about me pointing it at him. I'm not even talking about having the thing loaded. I'm just talking about having one of these scary rifles hanging on my back, which, by the way, in Michigan, I have a legal right to do. I can carry a loaded chambered AR-15 down the street. It's totally legal. I can't carry it in my vehicle, which is, without it being in a case and unloaded, which is weird, but I can walk with it. Now the cops will stop me, and I don't have a problem with somebody calling the cops and the cops stopping me. And as long as the cops understand my legal right. Now I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to put a firearm over my backside to get people to tap the brakes and slow down. But it's bad when we're just walking the dog and we have to fear for our lives because of people in cars, not even people with guns. The cars in my neighborhood are more dangerous than guns.
Yeah, put in some speed bumps. They're annoying, but they get the job done. I screen shared something you can look at here, what you're talking about.
I almost wanted to wear it as a deterrent. It's better than a reflective vest.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
But I'm not going to. I just don't want to deal with the police.
No kidding.
Chainsaw now?
Yeah, these are one of those. This is what gun channels took down the part where people were posting things like this, and I thought it was nice that we could post pictures like this on gun channels, but I think for some reason they took down like the news feed where people could post JPEG.
Pistol grip makes you shoot faster.
You can fire 500 rounds a second.
500 rounds a second. Wow, that's
Super high capacity magazine can also hold tank missiles.
Yeah, one of my problems with these laws is they're talking about semi-automatic rifles, and I just think it's a slippery slope because it's not really any different from a 10-round semi-automatic rifle versus a 10-round max capacity semi-automatic pistol. When you're dealing with people who don't have any guns at all, I don't really see a difference. The rifle cartridge or intermediate cartridge is going to be more powerful, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. If a bunch of people don't have guns and they're being fired at, what are they going to do? Is it going to make any difference? Are they going to be able to? If it's a 9mm pistol,
your rifle will be more powerful. It'll be more accurate. It'll be more powerful. However, bad guys aren't interested in rifles. They want something they can hide, and they usually want something cheap. They definitely, they don't care about the law.
Police officers, the gun they fear most is probably just a .380.
I wonder if cavemen outlawed rocks. Because I'm sure that's probably one of their primary killing to, or clubs.
Were they assault rocks?
Yeah, or assault clubs. Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to stop screen sharing this picture.
I think, Jared, if they looked at crime statistics, they'd find that the weapons that they're banning are the ones that are least used in crime, and that's another thing that frustrates gun guys. Is
what they did in Hawaii is they passed that wrap back list, which I hate. And the only reason they passed that that law is because they know people like me aren't going to pay them $42 to be put on an illegal list that's a direct violation of the 1986 Federal Firearm Owners Protection Act. They want us to pay the police department so they can put us on this list that basically is a criminal list so the FBI checks every day to see if every state to see if you've committed a crime in any other state. But you have to go through a background check to get a permit, a long gun permit, or any permit to acquire any gun in Hawaii. But they want you to pay an extra $42 so they can constantly check you every day, every firearm owner every day, and it's against the federal. But it's like they did it intentionally, so the people who didn't want to be on that list wouldn't buy any more guns, and so they worked. I'm not buying anywhere. I'm not paying them $42 to be. If they want to put me on a list, let them pay for it themselves. But I had to walk into the gun shops, owners shop, and say I can't buy any more guns because of this stupid law, because I don't want to pay them $42 to be put on an illegal list, so I'm not going to. If they want to put me on a list, let them come up. The state is broke. Let them come up with the money. They can't even pay for their own rail system in the state.
Well, every state, though, is different. I mean, there's some laws that are similar in most states, but every state is different. When I was in Nebraska, I went out to the range with Travis P11, went to his local range. We met him. We got off the expressway, and we met him near the expressway and followed him up to the range and checked in and all this, and, got out all of our stuff, and we started shooting. And we went back to his house afterward, and when we got there, I was helping him unpack all of his gear from his Jeep, and he says, "Can you get the AR out of the back of the Jeep?" And I open up the back door, it's 4-door, and there's this AR-15 sitting there loaded in the back seat. It's loaded, no case, no nothing. And I said, "Dude, you drove around like this?" He goes, "Yeah, why?" I go, "What do you mean, yeah, why?" And I said, "It's loaded." He goes, "Yeah, we can do that." I said, "It's not in a case." He goes, "We don't need no case." And
you do in Hawaii.
In Michigan, you could not do that. I can walk down the street loaded and chambered, but I cannot put it in the back seat of my pickup truck like that. So it's weird. But
In Hawaii,
they can't carry a shotgun like that. They can carry an AR-15 like that, but they can't carry a shotgun like that in Nebraska. So every state has got some sort of weird law or some law that don't make sense, or one really cool law and two bad laws to go with it, or whatever it is. But
I think I just reached the point where I've got all the guns I really need. Yeah, I'd like to have more, but I can get by without paying paying the state their $42 to be put on this illegal list.
Well, the thing is, though, guys like you and really most of the guys on gun channels and whatnot, if the laws weren't so restricted in their state and you could have other firearms or transport them different ways or shoot them more places or stuff like that, I don't think we would be any more of air quotes threat or any more dangerous or liable to commit criminal acts if we didn't have these restrictions on us. I think we would probably be just as safe, and we'd spend a lot more money, but I don't think we would be any more dangerous to the general public. If some of these laws weren't there. Doggone it, now I'm doing what you do. I'm saying every other thing. Doggone it, Hawaii.
Don't blame me.
No, it's your fault. You used a Jedi mind trick on me.
It's contagious.
Well, I don't know. Next thing I know, you'll be building hedgehogs and then.
Now, Dusty will drive all the way over here and smack me if I do.
Wait, you can't build a hedgehog at your house just because he doesn't want them?
No, actually, I couldn't. I might be able to build one in the shop at work, but more than likely, I'd go over to Dusty's and ask him, "Hey, man, can I use your shop to build a hedgehog?" He's got a nice setup in his pole barn.
Yeah, I bet. I was saying when I did see the Tobruk. Oh, there was a really interesting story because I was watching the American Heroes channel and they had a show on Tobruk, and the Desert Rats with Richard Burton was on over the weekend, and there was this really cool story about they interviewed some of the veterans who were at Tobruk when the Rommel was trying to take it, and the Aussies and the British, and there was this one British officer that was in charge of some Italian artillery piece or something, and they were shooting, and they were shooting their artillery piece during a German attack, and a shell came in and blew up his gun and most of his gun crew, and he was kind of knocked senseless. And then there was artillery dropping all around where he was, and then the next thing he knows, there's two Germans come storming over a berm and jump almost on top of him, and so he starts fighting with them hand to hand. He doesn't even have time to get his pistol. He hits one guy, he takes off his helmet and starts hitting one of the Germans, these two Germans, with his helmet, and they're just fist fighting. And then they hear artillery coming in, and so the British lieutenant jumps back into the trench to take cover, and the Germans just jump right on top of him. And there's all of a sudden all these shells go off all around him, and then the Germans get up and they're very upset, and they point back at their own lines and they say, "Stupid Italians!" And so the British guy gets up, backs up, and points back at their lines and say, "Yeah, stupid Italians!" And then they all laugh, and then they shake his hand, and then they just leave to head back to their own lines. And he found them after the war in Germany. He intentionally went to try and find them, and it was such a crazy story that they remembered him. So they had a drink in somewhere in Germany and had a laugh about it all after the war. But they only had they didn't have any hedgehogs in Italy. They just had a anti-tank trench all around Tobruk, and the whole strategy when they defended Tobruk was to the infantry let the tanks through. They tried to figure out where the tanks were going to cross, and they set up their artillery where they could take out the tanks. And the infantry let the tanks through, and they just fought the German infantry, and they didn't engage the tanks. So the tanks didn't have any infantry defense, and they were lined up by anti-tank artillery and British artillery, and kind of funneled into a kill zone. And that's how Rommel screwed up his major attack on Tobruk. Anyway, that was a film starring Richard Burton, the Desert Rats, and
you talk about movies again, and you know how I'm just not a movie fan. I this week or last week.
But I know you like Arlie Ermy, and
yeah, I like Arlie Ermy. But last week, my wife and I finally saw Casablanca because of you, and just you keep talking about it. So it's an American classic. We saw it. Okay, fine.
Did the wife like it?
She liked it, except for the ending. She thinks that Bogey should have sent that guy off with the Germans and taken off with the girl. And I'm like, yeah, but that'd be kind of a dick move. And she's like, yeah, I know, but it would have been a better ending.
In 1942, when the film was released, there was this film censorship board. And in 1942, going off with somebody else, going off with a married woman, it's not allowed. Just they had a big fight over the Claude Rains character, the French police commander,
that wanted the favors for the signatures,
sexual favors for exit visas for pretty girls, and just they got in trouble just when he the scene where in his office one of his officers comes up and says, "Oh, there's another visa problem," and he goes up and looks in the mirror and straightens his tie. They got a letter from the censorship board. They got a letter from the censorship board on that.
Well, anyhow, in the remake, I think whoever plays Bogey should take off with the chick. So, but yeah, she liked it.
I'm glad you two. Did you like it at all, or
no, not at all.
Something wrong with you. There's just something wrong with you.
There could be something wrong with me. It could be very much so.
Well, that basically, as I think I was saying off the air after Oiley's last chat, is Casablanca was released right 2 weeks after the invasion of North Africa by Operation, I think it was Operation Torch. And so the Allies landed in Casablanca, and then they released this film. And the week they released this film, Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Winston Churchill met in Casablanca, which actually means White House. So FDR got back to Washington, D.C., and he screened Casablanca in the White House. And he liked it. So, but that was it was a story where Ingrid Bergman, a Swedish actress, was in love with two different men, and she was in love with each man for a different reason. I mean, what about did you like the scene at all with the dueling patriotic songs, the German Watch on Rhine and the French national anthem?
I think I've seen something like that in another movie somewhere. But
somebody copied Casablanca? Oh, okay.
My wife was asking me, she goes, what are they singing? And I had to explain they were the national anthems of both countries. So...
Watch on Rhine wasn't the national anthem. It was a patriotic song. The Marseille was the national anthem.
I was wrong, but yeah,
it's as good as the national anthem.
But just, I don't know. Here's the thing. If I try to put in context of like what you're talking about with the censorship back then, and just the fact that films were still somewhat of a new thing. Okay, so really lousy acting and really lousy scripts were, probably commonplace. But I don't know. Nowadays, I still see really lousy acting and really lousy scripts. If I try to put in the context of, how many people actually had ever seen a film back then and that sort of thing, they might think this is a great film. So, I'm not trying to give it modern day standards. I am trying to be somewhat objective. I don't know.
Modern day standards. It's a master class in camera angles, a shadow, in shade.
See, it's because you're in the film industry. You look for stuff like that. It's just like when I walk through a building, I'm looking for stains in the ceiling tiles. I'm looking for doors that squeak. I'm looking for code violations. I'm looking to make sure they have enough fire extinguishers. I'm looking, at do they have the proper number of egresses, stuff like that. And you're there going, what, who cares, whatever. That you're talking about things that are in your line of work, and that you think about. When I look at a movie, it's just a movie. When you go into a building, you're probably not counting how many fire extinguishers are there, seeing if the pull stations are in the right place, or what sort of lighting do they have, or that, because you don't do that for a living. So we all kind of tend to gravitate what we know or what we're good at. So I don't think I'm ever going to be able to look at a movie like you, because I've never put the kind of work into a movie like you have. I mean, I didn't notice anything special about the lighting or the cameras, whatever. It was just...
Well, there's something... You must be blind. I mean, when Captain Renault walks up to Victor Laszlo and his wife, the first thing you see is his shadow against the wall. The first thing, you don't see him. You sense his detective, his presence by behind Ingrid right behind Ingrid Bergman. There's his shadow appears. Of his face with his police cap right behind where she is.
Okay, sure.
And all the Venetian blinds and all the plants. It looks like every scene. It looks like there's prison bars. They're surrounded by prison bars of shadows. It's like they're in a prison of love. They're in a prison by the Nazis. They're in a concentration camp. There's shadows. There's prison shadows everywhere. There's bars everywhere. The plants, even the plants look like prison, like bars of the prison. The shadows of the plants. They specifically picked those plants for a reason. I mean, that set design was designed that way for a reason. But anyway, you have to pay. If you pay attention, you notice these things. And is another thing that it had was how the camera moved. That was when they do close-ups. They did close-ups on Bogey when he was having his gin or whatever, and you'll see the camera was on a dolly, and it didn't just zoom in. The camera was on a the camera itself was moving. In that picture, the actors were moving and the cameras were moving, and that was new back then. And it gives a perspective it puts the film and the characters in a perspective that you wouldn't have, and it's subconscious. You don't even notice it. It's so good. Even a professional, if you're not a camera guy, you have to have that pointed out, and then you're like, oh yeah, I see what they're doing. It's like the camera dolly moves in on Bogart, it stops, and he's thinking about something, and then the viewer decide, do you actually want to get closer to how he's feeling? And the camera dolly moves in closer after a pause, and it's like these things actually make the film what it is.
Yeah, but you're wasting poetry on somebody who'd rather listen to a limerick. I think that's what he's trying to say.
Roses are red, violets are blue, Casablanca is great, and
F you, yeah.
I don't know.
No, it's kind of like this. I don't like a lot of movies today. I just think they're poorly written, they're poorly acted, and they have great scenes, but you can't tie the scenes together and make a cool movie. I'm not impressed. This movie is a classic, and I don't think it's any better. I just don't think it's any. It just doesn't do nothing for me. I'm sorry, man.
It reminds me of that line from the movie The Rock, where the guy says, "Let's talk music. Do you like Elton John, the Rocket Man?" He says, "No, I don't like soft ass shit." Well, he says, "Well,
I hate soft rock."
Well, I only bring it up because it's you. You're the Rocket Man, and he launches the rocket, and the guy goes flying out the window.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I don't know if me and movies are ever going to connect. I don't know. Yeah, but I watched it because you just kept on about it. And I'm like, I knew about the movie. I knew, basically when it took place or where it took place and that sort of thing. And I knew that it was an American classic. And it just
Michael Curtiz. Michael Curtiz was the director.
Yeah, that name means a whole lot to me.
Well, I know you've heard of Humphrey Bogart.
Well, yeah, I've heard of Humphrey. You know what? I think that's the very first Humphrey Bogart movie I've ever watched. I honestly think that is.
What about you never saw James Cagney and Humphrey Bogart in the Roaring '20s?
I don't think I've ever seen a James Cagney movie. I know who he is.
You never seen Yankee Doodle Dandy? The
Nope.
fuck is wrong with you?
And I got better things to do with my time.
Yankee Doodle Dandy?
Well, I'm enjoying all this freedom and I'm going out shooting instead of watching movies. So I don't know, man.
I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy. Yankee Doodle Doodle. How about the one where he plays George Cohan?
You know what? I thought Casablanca would make a better play than a movie. I really do. I thought if it was done on stage, it might be better.
How do you think Ingrid Bergman looked? Do you think she was hot?
Not at all. I will say this: both her boyfriend and her husband were much older than her, so whatever.
I think you're just fighting a losing battle.
Yeah, you're not gonna turn me. Just no. She was not hot. She was attractive, but no, she was not hot.
Now Hawaii's like beside himself. I just don't understand.
What about? Did you ever see the Maltese Falcon?
No.
That girl was hot. That reminded me. Mary Astor reminded me of a girl that I used to date. That's the stuff that dreams are made of. Is the length of that movie. Was that Jared?
Oh, no, I was gonna play a soundbite earlier, but I decided not to.
Oh, okay. Well, they demonetized my war films. I can't figure out why they did that, but I just want to say that I think maybe you guys can give me a yes or no. Do you think Google is a monopoly and should be broken up like Standard Oil was?
Well, didn't Standard Oil become more profitable than ever once it was broken up?
Yeah, and didn't the phone service go straight to hell after they broke up AT&T? Just saying.
Well, we only have limited tools, and antitrust legislation is the tool we have. Is Google a monopoly? Yes or no?
Yep.
Soon it will be.
By which time it will be more powerful than the government itself, and nobody will be able to break it up.
Oh, so we were at curriculum night tonight for my oldest son. He's a junior in high school, and the one teacher was saying how this year they're going to start using Google Classroom.
Oh,
They actually
okay.
have software called Google Classroom. So yes, they have taken over.
Your child will be a cybernetic organism by the time he graduates junior high.
He has an iPhone, and I'm a Droid kind of guy.
Oh, no.
And he's one of these people think iPhone is better, which it is not. And one of the teachers, if you're on your phone in his class, he'll take it away from you. And if you're not, if you do it chronically and you happen to have an iPhone, he'll try to unlock it 3 times. I guess that locks it for an hour. If you try to unlock it and you enter the wrong number 3 times in a row, it'll lock it for an hour. So
Did you hear about the Boston Red Sox? The whole thing with the Apple Watches?
No.
The Red Sox were cheating because they had an Apple Watch that was keeping track of the signals, the batter, and could send the signals from the Apple Watch to the dugout to the third plate. So they knew what pitches were coming because they were using electronic signaling devices. So there was a big controversy, and the league was deciding how much to fine them. And at their last game, wherever they were playing, everybody was chanting "Dirty Sox, Dirty Sox, Dirty Sox." But the whole thing is, if the league fines the Boston Red Sox, are they going to pay the fine with Apple Pay?
Oh, maybe. But I thought it was really clever that this teacher would take the phones away, and if the kid had an iPhone and they were chronically on their phone when they're told not to be, because he gives you an opportunity to just leave your phone in your backpack of your pocket. If you're taking it out and using it and he says don't use it. If it's an iPhone, I guess if you try to enter the code 3 times in a row and it's not the right code, it'll lock it for an hour. So the kid will get the phone back at the end of class, but he still can't use it because it's still locked down. Whereas with a Droid, that doesn't happen. So
if you keep doing that, it'll reset the phone. I forget how many times it is, but it'll fail safe and reset.
His phone will self-destruct in 2 minutes. He runs out of the classroom.
All right, get smart.
That wasn't Get Smart. That was Mission Impossible.
No, Get Smart had this phone on his shoe.
Yeah, that's right. But the message
by that much
would self-destruct.
Agent 99 was hot.
Oh my goodness.
God.
Oh my goodness.
I think that's what you got on the brain.
Yeah, I
think you should give us a whole breakdown of the movie The Day of the Jackal.
I'm trying to remember that one. The Night of the Jackal. The Night of the Jackal.
Oh, it's The Night of the Jackal? I thought it was The Day.
Is that the one where is that the movie where they're trying to assassinate De Gaulle or something?
I forget who he tries to assassinate, but isn't it Michael? Oh, man.
Michael Caine?
Michael Caine, yeah. He's got the old Alpha or something. He's got the gun hidden in the cane.
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but I did see it once. So I don't remember it from... I don't remember the camera angles and who was the director off the top of my head. It wasn't Casablanca.
If you weren't worried about who directed it or the camera angles or the lighting or the score, the opening score, any of that, and you actually just sat down with some popcorn and enjoyed the movie.
Well, I thought
okay, when you take a fast car out for a drive, you don't go so far down the road at high speed and then suddenly stop and think, oh my goodness, what sort of gas mileage am I getting? How much am I wearing off the tires? No, you don't. You hold that thing to the floor and you have a good time, okay? So go to the movie and have a good time. Don't worry about the lighting. That guy got paid. It's all fine. It's good.
What are you talking about?
I'm saying that you're getting into the technical aspects of the movie to make the movie great instead of saying The movie had a good story. The movie had good acting.
Well, it had all that, but it was
But the
it had
background lighting
techniques.
was awesome.
It used techniques for effect. It used these techniques for a desired effect on the audience. And it may have been subconscious to you, or you may have been unconscious.
You know what he hears when you're talking like that? He hears wah, 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 like
I
Charlie.
thought it, and you said it.
Well, I predict that you aren't going to have a gigantic future in the film industry. So.
I will not be a gaffer or a best boy or a key grip.
John Wayne got started by moving props around.
Didn't they pick Harrison Ford for Han Solo because he was doing carpentry on a set that day or something?
No, his agent got him that job, actually, and her name. I know her. I know his first agent.
Don't tell me she was hot too.
She liked one of my screenplays.
Oh, that's why
she was a casting agent that got him his first role. And she also cast Quigley Down Under was another movie that she cast, so you could figure out.
Oh,
now that was a good movie.
That's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Well written, well acted, well shot. I couldn't tell you who the director was. I don't care. I couldn't tell you about the lighting or any of that. I don't care. It was an entertaining movie, and there was some realism in it.
But what if Hans Zimmer did the music? You could enjoy his tick-tocking.
Oh, boy. I think I'm going to go get some Pepto-Bismol after that.
Did you notice the plants in there? Were the plants were they shaped like guns?
It was down under. There were no. It was
kangaroos were harmed in the filming of Quigley Down Under.
Or aboriginals.
I tried to get a look at the rifle, but it's locked up in Pete Brownell's office. Damn it.
Well, I like that line from the movie. You remember that line before the last gunfight?
I remember the line after where he says, I said I didn't have much use for him. I didn't say I didn't know how to use them.
The line for the gunfight was, this ain't Dodge City, and you ain't Bill Hickok.
Yep.
Of course, it may have been the other way around. He may have said for one line before the other.
Yep, you're right. Yeah, that was before the gunfight. Yep.
I remember that line. The line that I remember from the Desert Rats was at the end of the movie, the Siege of the Brook. It was Richard Burton running around. Basically, at the end of the movie, he orders all of his troops to withdraw, and they refuse to withdraw. They said, "We're not going anywhere. We're stayed for this hill." And so finally, the relief column breaks through from Alexandria to relieve the garrison at Tobruk, and Richard Burton is running around the hill that they're defending, saying, "Come out of your holes, you desert rats!" It's just a great ending to that movie. That was another Fox movie. All the in World War II, all the movie studios kind of were recruited into the Army Signals Corps as far as making patriotic war movies. And 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. Speaking of movies, I'll close it out on this one. Right now, I think there's only 4 surviving crew members from the Doolittle raid, and they have a tradition where every year they had, I think there were 80 crews, and every year they got together for there were 80 surviving crew members, and every year there were 80 crew members, and 4 of them did make it back, or 6 of them, or 8. But every year they have a reunion, and they would turn each member had a goblet with his name on it and a silver goblet, and they would turn it upside down if one passed away from old age or whatever. And there's four people left from the Doolittle raid, and so there's 74 upside down silver goblets, and there's 4 guys left. And that was really an amazing raid when they took off from the Hornet and in B-25s, and knowing they could not make it back, and not even knowing if they had enough fuel to make it to China and land somewhere. They went to bomb Tokyo. And that was just a shot in the arm that America needed, because after World War II started, Pearl Harbor, the Allies lost almost every battle. They were losing in the Philippines. They were losing in Africa. They were losing everywhere. And so that was a real shot in the arm. And they were, after World War II, they were definitely heroes, the flyers on that raid. So 30 Seconds Over Tokyo was a pretty good movie. It's another black and white one, and classic. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you're in a hurricane evacuation area, get to a Red Cross center. You'll be glad you did. All right, this is HVS. We'll see you all next week. Take care of each other. Do something nice for somebody.
Bye,
Sure,
guys.
good. Bye. You want to give us the Humvee quote one more time before I hit the stop button?
I'm only borrowing it.